At least 13 people are confirmed dead in southwestern Japan after a powerful earthquake struck Kumamoto Prefecture on Tuesday afternoon. That figure came from Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi on Wednesday morning, the 29th of July, and officials expect it to rise. Rescue teams are still working at two collapsed structures, a shopping mall and a paper mill, where people remain unaccounted for. More than 100 aftershocks have been recorded. Evacuation orders cover more than 220,000 people, and the Japan Meteorological Agency has warned that shaking as strong as the initial quake could return at any point over the coming week. This is a live event, and every number in this report is preliminary. Within minutes of the earthquake, the Japan Meteorological Agency, Japan's national weather and seismic authority, issued a tsunami advisory for the Ariake and Yatsushiro seas, the two semi-enclosed bodies of water on Kyushu's west coast. The forecast was for waves up to 1 meter, roughly 3 feet. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center stated that hazardous waves were possible within 300 kilometers, or about 186 miles, of the epicenter. No waves were recorded, and the advisory was lifted within about 2 hours. The more serious warning is still in force. The Japan Meteorological Agency has told residents to remain alert for shaking of up to shindo 7, the top of Japan's seismic intensity scale, for around a week, and particularly over the first 2 to 3 days. In issuing it, the agency pointed directly at what happened in this same region in 2016. The earthquake struck at 16:27 local time on Tuesday the 28th of July, which is 7:27 Universal Time Coordinated. The epicenter was about 5 kilometers, roughly 3 miles, east of the city of Uto in Kumamoto Prefecture, on Kyushu, the southernmost of Japan's 4 main islands. Kumamoto City, population around 738,000, sits about 14 kilometers to the northwest. There are two magnitude figures in circulation, and both are correct. The Japan Meteorological Agency measured it at 7.1 on its own magnitude scale, which is the number Japanese officials and Japanese media are using. The United States Geological Survey puts it at 6.8 on the moment magnitude scale, which measures the total energy released by the fault. The USGS initially issued 7.1, then revised its own estimate down to 6.8. Depth is the figure that matters most here. All three agencies, the USGS, the JMA, and the European Mediterranean Seismological Center, put the rupture at around 10 kilometers, about 6 miles. That is shallow. Shallow depth is the mechanism that turned this into a disaster. When a fault ruptures 10 kilometers below the surface, the energy has very little distance to weaken before it reaches the ground people are standing on. The JMA recorded a maximum intensity of shindo 7 at Uki City and at Hikawa. Shindo 7 is the highest reading the scale has. It does not measure the fault. It measures what the ground did to people and buildings, and at that level standing upright is not possible. Upper 6 readings were logged at Yatsushiro, Uto, Misato, Mashiki, and the southern ward of Kumamoto City. The scientists Judith Hubbard and Kyle Bradley, writing in Earthquake Insights on the 28th of July, put that level of shaking at roughly the equivalent of violent intensity on the international scale. The USGS estimates around 813,000 people felt severe shaking, 609,000 felt very strong shaking, and 1.7 million felt strong shaking. The agency assessed that extensive damage was possible and the disaster likely widespread. Its modeling also flagged 2 secondary hazards as significant in both severity and extent. The first is liquefaction, where saturated soil temporarily behaves like a liquid and buildings sink or tilt. The second is landslides. The JMA has separately warned that slopes loosened by the shaking are now vulnerable, with summer rainfall a possibility on top of that. This was not a subduction earthquake. It was a shallow rupture on a crustal fault inside the plate Japan sits on, a strike-slip event, meaning the two sides of the fault slid past each other sideways rather than one riding over the other. Hubbard and Bradley's preliminary reading, based on early aftershock locations, is that the rupture involved the Yatsushiro and possibly the Mifune fault zones. They described that as a preliminary guess. Confirmation will require field mapping of surface ruptures and satellite radar measurements of ground displacement. The largest rescue operation is at Aeon Mall Kumamoto, in Kashima Town. According to prefectural officials, about 200 shoppers were guided safely out of the building after the earthquake. Roughly an hour later, an explosion, suspected by authorities to have been caused by a gas leak, tore through the structure, blowing off exterior walls and bringing down part of the second floor. Witnesses reported smelling gas beforehand, according to Reuters. 8 people have been pulled from the rubble. 2 of them, women in their 20s, were dead. AEON says 4 of its workers remain unaccounted for after checking roughly 2,700 staff. Earlier, NHK had reported 20 to 30 employees uncontactable, so that figure has narrowed as checks progressed. This mall was heavily damaged in the 2016 Kumamoto earthquake. It spent years being rebuilt, with seismic reinforcements added, and held its grand reopening on the 13th of June this year, 6 weeks ago. AEON described the project as a restart, marking the region's recovery. The second operation is at the Nippon Paper Industries factory in Yatsushiro, where a chimney collapsed and trapped people beneath the debris. Kumamoto Prefecture's disaster management headquarters reported 9 people unaccounted for. The Associated Press reported 7 feared still trapped as of Wednesday. 2 survivors and 2 bodies have been recovered, and officials said 2 of those brought out were in cardiopulmonary arrest. Across the wider region, the damage is systemic. As of Wednesday morning, Chief Cabinet Secretary Minoru Kihara said around 36,900 homes were still without electricity and 9,500 without gas, with communications networks down in some areas. The Kyushu Shinkansen bullet train remains suspended. Aso Kumamoto Airport closed a runway on Tuesday and was resuming operations Wednesday with some flights cancelled. A freight train derailed. A footbridge collapsed. Long cracks have opened in an elevated highway, and fires broke out around Uki City. Several residents of a nursing home in Hikawa were injured in falls. Stone walls were damaged at Kumamoto Castle, a structure still under repair from the 2016 earthquake. Kyushu Electric Power reported no impact at the Sendai or Genkai nuclear plants, and Kihara confirmed no irregularities. Kumamoto is also the center of Japan's semiconductor program, and the shaking reached it. The town of Kikuyo, home to TSMC's Japanese venture JASM, recorded Shindo 5, past the site's evacuation threshold. TSMC pulled its staff out and halted operations, then said late Tuesday it had begun gradually resuming after structural inspections confirmed the buildings were safe. Sony Semiconductor Solutions evacuated both of its image sensor fabs. Tokyo Electron Kyushu suspended both plants on Wednesday for inspections. Toppen halted its Tamana packaging plant, and Fujifilm Kyushu stopped production. No injuries or damage were reported at any of these sites. Some analysts have argued that concentrating this much capacity inside a single 20-kilometer radius turns a regional earthquake into a global supply exposure. The counter-argument, made in the same reporting, is that there is no seismically quiet prefecture in Japan. The aftershock sequence is the reason rescue work keeps stopping. An aftershock reaching lower 5 intensity hit roughly 30 minutes after the main quake. By 17:20 local time on Tuesday, the JMA had logged 11, including one of magnitude 6.1. Overnight, that count passed 100. They are spread along a corridor of about 50 kilometers, from the coast south of Yatsushiro up toward Kumamoto City. Police and rescuers have repeatedly been unable to enter the mall site because of that risk. Aftershocks striking buildings already weakened by the main shock are the specific danger the JMA's week-long alert is built around. On displacement, 3 separate figures are circulating and they measure different things. Evacuation orders cover 222,250 people across 3 cities and 3 towns. Emergency safety measures apply to a further 92,743 people in 2 cities. The number actually sleeping in shelters is smaller. Kihara said more than 9,000 people were staying in over 500 shelters as of Wednesday. Those shelters are the immediate humanitarian problem, because Japan is in a heat wave. Temperatures in the affected area were forecast to exceed 32 degrees Celsius, about 90 Fahrenheit. Kihara said additional power sources were being added to evacuation centers so they could run air conditioning. Japan recorded a 5-day run of 40 degrees Celsius temperatures earlier this month, the longest on record. Japan's Fire and Disaster Management Agency reported 345 teams comprising 1,139 responders from 8 prefectures, for a total of 1,410 personnel including local agencies. The self-defense forces joined operations at both rescue sites on Wednesday. Prime Minister Takaichi said the government was preparing to deliver food and other necessities to hard-hit areas. Her words on Wednesday: "There are people who are still waiting to be rescued, and it's a race against time. We will go all out to find and rescue as many people as we can." Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te sent condolences and said assistance was being prepared. There is one figure that should shape how the next several weeks are read. The 2016 Kumamoto earthquakes killed at least 277 people. Around 50 of those deaths were caused directly by the shaking. 218 were classified by Japanese authorities as disaster-related deaths, people who died afterward from worsened injuries, chronic illness, interrupted medication, and dialysis, and the conditions of prolonged displacement. Japan tracks that category more rigorously than almost any country, which is the only reason the number exists. As of Wednesday, the 29th of July, 13 deaths are confirmed and the toll is expected to rise. Rescue operations continue at Aeon Mall Kumamoto and the Nippon Paper Yatsushiro Mill, with people still unaccounted for at both. Aftershocks are ongoing. The Japan Meteorological Agency's alert for shaking up to Shindo 7 runs through roughly the 4th of August. Tens of thousands of homes remain without power or gas, and more than 9,000 people are in shelters in dangerous heat. No official damage estimate has been published, and the toll is still rising. We'll continue tracking this event as official updates come in. Subscribe to follow it.